I never seem to know what to talk about with people in just everyday conversations. Whenever somebody just says, "Hey Kenny, how's it going?" I freak out at that point because my mind goes blank. I don't know what to say. I usually just end up saying, "Hey, I'm doing good. What's up with you?" And then I let them talk, and then I just say nothing for like 20 minutes. I basically just stay quiet the whole time. And this is like every single social situation I've ever been in my life. And sure, there's a little bit of or not just a little bit, there's a lot of social anxiety going on, which is my mind, worried that the other person's judging me, or I worry that the other person doesn't like me. There's a lot of worrying going on in my head, but there's always the lack of things to talk about. I don't know what people would find interesting. I don't know what to share about myself because, I think it's because I live a pretty boring life. And so what I hear most people talk about in everyday conversations are like, people will talk about like their family or their work or things that happen to them, or, because people tend to have busier lives than I have. So like they just talk about the things that they've done. But like for me, like, what am I going to talk about? Like, "Hey Kenny, how's it going?" It's like, "Oh, I just played video games for like 8 hours straight the other day." Like, that's not a conversation topic, So, a lot of the small talk, how's the weather, that stuff is, boring and nobody likes to talk about that. So, for me, I struggle with conversations with people, and, it sucks because like I'm 30 years old and I've struggled with this my entire life. I'm 31 actually, but who cares, but I've struggled with this my entire life, and I've never really made any major improvements in small talk, in, just finding things to talk about. So I want to share with you guys the things that I have learned for how to improve, the things that I think are valuable lessons when it comes to coming up with things to talk about. Number one, the first thing is this is not even really about what to say. This is really about a perspective shift. I've learned that it's actually okay not to talk to people. That you don't have to be the life of the party. You don't have to always be talking. I mean, sure, you should develop skills as far as one-on-one. If you're talking to somebody, you have to know how to be an active listener, by repeating things that they say back to them, and by, giving feedback, or, if somebody talks about something that they like, if somebody talks about their dog or something, you can maybe talk about an experience that you had with your dog or somebody else's dog, or talk about something, it's like, usually being an active listener involves, somebody says one thing and you say something back that's related to the thing that they just said, right? So like that is a skill that I think you can work on, but you do have to be able to talk to people. You have to be able to have a conversation with somebody. I think that it's important to build conversation skills, but at the same time, like if you're just hanging out with a group of people, if you're at a party or something, or if you're at work and you're in a group, like you don't have to talk all the time. Like, but on the flip side, there are some times where I'll go a whole hour and the only thing that I contribute is like, I'll say things, "Oh yeah, that's cool," and I just insert, "Oh, that's cool," every few minutes. "Oh, that's cool." "Oh yeah, no, that's awesome." Yeah. No, I see that. Yeah, no. Like I'll just say a bunch of stuff like that, but I won't actually add my own stories or opinions or feelings, or I a lot of times I just leave that stuff. I've gotten better, but like a lot of times that's the extent of what I say. So the first thing that I've learned is really just that I don't need to always be sharing things. I don't always need to be talking, but a lot of like what it seems like is going on is like I'm analyzing all the things that people are talking about. Like people will be talking and I'll be listening and I'll be hearing stuff, and I'll think about everything in my head, and I'll have so many thoughts about what people are saying, but I won't ever think to myself, oh, I need to share what I'm thinking with people. I just sort of I feel content. I feel happy just having the thoughts for myself. And I just don't think like about how I can express things to others that I don't know. Like it's just a weird thing where I like thinking. I like being in my own head. And like a lot of times the thoughts don't come out in normal everyday conversations. You know, I do much better in a setting like this. Like this is my outlet for getting my thoughts out to other people, like through video. I mean, this is not one-on-one. This is not like actually, it's not the same skill, you know, talking to a camera as it is talking to an actual person in real life, you know. But I feel like this is my outlet, you know. But here's one thing that I have learned is like the best way for me to be able to contribute to conversations. It is always, this is the big thing that I've learned. Number one thing that I utilize, number one thing that I do is I ask questions, right? If somebody brings up a topic, you know, I am very, very good at being able to ask a question. And this is good for one-on-one, and this is good for group settings. And let me give you, I don't really have an example. I don't have a specific example, but let me just illustrate this. There's been many, many times where I have just been sitting there in a group of like 5 people, and like everybody's talking back and forth except for me. I'm just kind of sitting there quiet and sort of being withdrawn, you know. Everybody's kind of sharing stuff back and forth, they're commenting, and then I'll just sit there, and then the conversation is going in one direction, and then I'll say, oh, I'll just like kind of almost like I raise my hand. I'll just kind of insert one question as the only question maybe I've inserted in like 5 minutes of the conversation. I'll insert one question, be like, oh, have you guys been to that local restaurant yet? And I'll just ask, have you guys been to that restaurant? And then I'll see one person in the group say, oh yeah, I've been there. And they'll go on this long conversation about what they did at that restaurant. And then I slowly sink back into my chair, and I don't say a word for like 5 minutes. But what I just did was I sparked a conversation by asking a question. And now the other 4 people or 5 people in the group, you know, they're talking to each other almost. I mean, it's not like they're ignoring me, but like I'm just not talking, you know? So it's like, this is how a lot of social interactions go with me there. Is like, I don't contribute, but then I ask one question, and that one question like derails the entire conversation. It goes into an entirely new direction, but I don't even contribute to the new conversation. I just ask the one question, and now everybody starts talking about this new thing, and I just sit back and I just keep being this socially isolated, withdrawn person. You know, does that make any sense? Like I just throw in a question and everybody else starts talking. And like this is a tool that I think works very, very well for making YouTube videos. It works very, very well one-on-one. You know, if somebody tells you a story one-on-one, or if somebody tells you a fact, you can ask a question, you know, give, you know, like, what do you mean by that? Or, I know this is very basic conversation stuff, but as a shy person, somebody with social anxiety, somebody very introverted, somebody very socially withdrawn and isolated with no social skills, no conversation skills, I've learned just asking questions, it kind of throws the ball back into the other court of whoever's participating in the conversation, and they can, you know, you just get good at asking the right follow-up questions to things, you know. And not only that, but it also is what allows me to come up with a new thing to say. So if you don't even ask it out loud to somebody else, the question, if you just ask it to yourself, like right now, let's just say, okay, let's do this. Let's pretend that me and you are having a conversation right now, and let's pretend that I all of a sudden my mind just went blank. Like I just don't know what to talk about, right? Like I just kind of freeze up, and I'm just sitting here in silence. Let me just go silent for like 5 seconds, just kind of illustrate how awkward the silence is. Do you ever just feel, because that's the thing that's going on, is like when the reason why I feel so bad is because I feel like when nobody's talking, I feel like there's silence in the air. It feels like I have to fill that. Somebody always needs to be filling the silence with talk, right? That feels like it always just feels awkward just to be sitting there, just not talking to people, right? So let's do this. Let me sit here in silence, and we'll just say this is an example of me and you having a one-on-one conversation, and my mind goes blank, and I realize I don't know what to say to you. Okay, so my mind is blank. I don't know what to say. Let's go back to this thing I brought up about asking questions. I don't have to ask you a question. I don't have to verbalize a question to you. I can just internally ask myself a question. So first question is, what could I say right now? I don't know. Okay, I'm thinking to myself, what can I say right now? Okay, they just brought up their dog. Here's a question. What's the best treat to give to a dog? What kinds of treats do dogs like? Like, are there favorite ones? Well, I don't even have a dog, so like, I don't even know. I don't even know like what kind. If you go to a store down the pet aisle, like, what are are there different kinds of treats? Like, which one's better? Like, I know you got the little bones, like the I don't know what do you call them? Biscuits? I don't even know what they're called. Wait, isn't there? I remember seeing this commercial. There was like the bacon strips. You ever see that? I don't know if that's just an American thing or what. But like, the bacon strip. Do you guys see how I asked one question, right? So asking yourself one question will lead you down a path of one thought leads to another, right? So if I heard the other person talk about dogs, I ask myself, do I have any questions about dogs in my own head right now? Yeah, my question about dogs is, what do they like to eat? What are their treats? So I ask that question, and by asking that question, I then come up with things that I can ask them, and that leads to another conversation. So you now see, I thought about dog treats, and I thought about when I was younger, I saw these commercials on TV for these bacon strip like treats, which are like called bacon strips or something, And so I remembered that, and by remembering that thing because of the question I asked, it gives me something to talk about. And again, and this is the thing, is that humans, it feels like we are able to go anywhere. We are able to jump from one topic to another like crazy. Like, I can be talking to you about dogs in one moment, and then we can completely pivot and start talking about airplanes in the next second, and like, then we could talk about, like, there doesn't have to be a natural flow to things. That's another tip for you guys, is like, don't feel bad about completely changing the subject or completely bringing up something completely random. So you can come up with anything off the top of your head, like, I don't, and now as I try to come up with something, I can't. It does help to have something to go off of, right? It helps you have to almost anchor yourself somewhere. You almost have to have something to latch onto, or else you can't really come up with anything. So which is why, like, you might have to look around and see if anything in your visual, field of vision, if anything stands out to you, if nothing stands out to you, then you can't. So you got to think back. What did I do today? What is something that happened to me recently? You have to have a jumping off point, and maybe that's where people struggle with, is not having that jumping off point. But once you have one thing, one sort of point to focus on, that then lets you jump and make connections to other things. And so maybe it's a question of how can you ask the right question that leads you to a place, so you have to ask the right question. You ask the right question, the conversation will follow, right? So a question that I have right now, if I have nothing, if I'm just floating out in the middle of the ocean and I have like a life raft, I'm just sitting here, I'm like, I have nothing. There's no land anywhere around me. I have nothing to grab onto. So you just have to go into your mind. You have to ask the right question. Okay, what can I talk about right now? Well, what was I doing earlier today? Well, I just woke up a few hours ago, so I mean, I didn't really do much today, you know. I mean, uh, I don't know, man. I'm actually blanking right. This is another example. I'm actually blanking right now. Like this is a perfect example of like I don't know what to say. Like I can sit here, I can try, I can do my best to come up with things, but like if you were here, if this was a one-on-one face-to-face thing and it's my job to like keep a conversation going, this is my problem that I have. Is like I will sit here and just be like I don't know. Um okay. So here's my launching off point. So I so somebody that I am friends with, a family member, I should say, a family member. One of my family members recently went on vacation, and they went to. So I remember seeing a picture on Facebook of like they went to the what is the redwood trees, right? With all those big giant trees, right? They went to that area. I don't know where that is. I can't remember. Is that like California? Where is that at? Redwood National State Park, Northern California? I mean, I don't know if that's where they went. I'm assuming that's got to be where they went. I mean, it has to be. So, okay. You see how, like, I asked... So, like, I had to have an anchoring off point. I had to, like, remember something that I've seen recently on social media. And that led to asking the question... Or to the topic of, like, California, redwood trees. You know, so you can ask questions like, hey, have you ever been there to see the redwood trees? Isn't that crazy how big those trees are? Would you ever go there? Do you want to go there? What states are they in? Are they just in California? Are they, you know, you can ask all these other follow-up questions at that point once you have a launching off point. But you see how hard it was for me to come up with a topic? That's, I think, what the struggle is for a lot of people, is you're just sitting there and you're just like, I don't know. And so I know this is all very basic stuff, right? For a lot of people, having conversations, coming up with something to talk about is not that hard for them. But for me, it is. For me, I just never know what to say. And I never know what to say a lot of times. And I feel like it's because I'm overthinking things. I'm lost in my own thoughts. And like, I don't know. A lot of times I don't feel like the things that I'm thinking are worth sharing with people. That is another thing that I think sometimes is like, okay, yeah, I had a thought and I could say that out loud, but also maybe if I say that, people are going to think I'm dumb. There's a little bit of insecurity stuff going on there. There's a lot of stuff going on, but I think one of the biggest things is how do you generate an idea to come up with to talk about out of nowhere? And usually you shouldn't have to come up with something out of nowhere. You should jump off from one thing and you can just make associations. You make, you know, it's almost like so there's this thing in psychology, I think, that they call like lateral thinking versus like, so there's like, if you're a very, very logical person, like a step-by-step, you're more straightforward. One thing leads to another. Like this thing leads to that thing, leads to this thing, leads to this thing. Whereas some people who are more creative think this way. They think laterally. I might be butchering this, by the way, but I've heard this explained this way. So like I could be talking about clowns, and then I could jump and talk about, you know, the some movie that I saw recently. By the way, what movie have I seen recently? I don't know. I've been going back. And I've been watching a bunch of Disney movies I haven't seen in a while. Been going back. I went back and I watched Alice in Wonderland a couple months ago. I watched Sleeping Beauty recently. I went back and I watched again. Why am I sharing this with you? Do you understand that like that thought just came into my mind of like movies, and like I thought about what movies I watched recently, and that gave me something to talk about with you guys. And like we could talk about movies right now. We could talk about Disney. We could talk about a whole bunch of things because I had that thought and I decided I'm going to verbalize that. I know this is so stupid. This is so stupid to talk about. It feels so basic, like I'm explaining to you guys how to talk, which is all like we learn how to talk when we're kids, right? But even as a 31-year-old adult, I still feel like my mind blanks. I still feel like there's just so many times where I don't know what to say to people. And and the reason why this matters to me is because I want to have the enjoyment of connecting with another human being. So I don't feel as lonely, right? Or so I feel, I don't know. I just want to connect to other people, you know? And there's fun in, or there's a level of satisfaction in engaging with another person. Because you share life experiences, you share thoughts with them, you know? But for some people, just having a very simple, basic conversation is difficult to do. And a lot of people are worried about small talk. But, you know, I think this is a pretty common talking point about small talk, which is that I'm not very good at small talk. I don't like small talk. Well, nobody does, right? But the small talk should lead to other things, right? Like you talk about one thing and it brings you somewhere, you know? Yeah, I honestly don't get out much, you know? I don't hang out with people. I don't have any friends. I don't like, it's very difficult for me to socialize with people, but this is something that I'm trying to work on, trying to improve on. And I just want to share my thoughts with you guys on this subject. Probably relevant because I will be uploading a bunch of videos to this channel going forward, especially now that I'm trying to get my channel monetized to reach the 4,000 hours of watch time before they change it to 8,000 hours in February 1st. So I'm going to be uploading a lot of videos to the channel, and so there's going to be some days where I don't know what to talk about, you know, but I just want to upload something here. So also, if I do live stream, sometimes when I live stream, I get lost and I don't know what to talk about. And I just feel like this is boring. Why am I streaming if I'm not talking to you guys, you know? But being able to generate things to talk about is something that I think you can work on and develop. And it has to be by asking the right questions and by being able to attach yourself to one thing and find a connection to that thing to bring you to a new area associating one thing, find something else to talk about. Because if you're just trying to come up with something out of thin air, it is very hard to do, you know? So that's why I think about what did I do today? What did I do recently? Those are always good points to start with. But if you ever just have a thought, like you wonder things, you know, like, hey, I wonder, you know, what's the meaning of life? Yeah, but then you start talking, start going into really deep topics, you know, when you start asking those questions, which, by the way, those are some questions that I want to talk about, you know, like what is life about, you know? We'll get there. We'll get there at some point, guys. We'll go deep into some of these big questions. So that's it for this video. Thank you for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Hit the like button if you want to see more videos from me on the channel. Trust me, they will be coming the rest of the year. So I appreciate it. Take care of yourselves, guys, and I'll see you next time.